Hello everybody and welcome back to Set 6, and today we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer. Like, unbelievable. I'm still in a state of shock. I still haven't completely processed it. We're going to try and catch everything that we can as we're going through this trailer. There's not a massive amount of information. In fairness, this trailer, it pretty much leaves you with more questions than you had initially, which, you know, fun. But I suppose that's what we do. That's what we do. We talk about possibilities, we look at theories, we talk about theories, and we wait for the game. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content. There's going to be plenty more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, and Final Fantasy XVI news over the next 18 months. And what a wild 18 months it's going to be, so don't miss out. But let's get on with it. So the trailer starts with an aerial view that kind of drops down from what seems to be some sort of ceiling or something like that. You know, it looks like the underside of the plate in Midgar, but given the angle that it's going off on, it doesn't seem like it can be. So that's a bit weird. I assume it's just for the cinematics and things like that. But yeah, it does look a little bit weird, if I'm being honest with you. But we pan out from that and we're zooming down and we're following a white feather. And the feather just heads gradually down towards Cloud and Zack. And during this, we hear Aerith talking about the past being set in stone, but the future being something that we can change, regardless of whether it's written or not. So very much sticking with that theme of changing destiny, changing the future, but not being able to change the past. That seems to be kind of the approach that Aerith's going with at this point. Now, the interesting thing about this feather is, like, what's the deal? What is the deal with this feather? Because the only person that I can solidly recall ever being depicted with like a white feather motif in Final Fantasy VII's compilation is Angeal Hewlett, which kind of makes me think, are we going to see some kind of focus on the through line from Angeal to Zack to Cloud with like the Buster Sword and things like that? Are we going to see Angeal potentially involved in some capacity? Now, as Aerith finishes talking and we kind of cut away from Cloud and Zack, we get a flash of Meteor Fall again, which is an image that they're going to keep pushing at us. It's going to be an ever-present thing. And then we get some text on the screen which says what will become of the planet. Now, there is a bit of a difference in this. We'll get to this later on. There's a little section at the end where this will become relevant again. But we'll leave it for now. We then see Cloud walking in the Mount Nibel area. And this is the section of the trailer where my brain literally fell out. Because we see Sephiroth just kind of coast in from the right-hand side of the screen, just like, hello. And he's walking alongside Cloud, and it's definitely meant to make us think of the Calm flashback. And a lot of the things that are going on in this trailer are very reminiscent of the Calm flashback. You'll see what I mean as we go through it. But yeah, Sephiroth just kind of coasting in here, and let's just take a moment. Mount Nibel looks insane. It looks absolutely insane. I'm pretty certain it's Mount Nibel. It can't really be anywhere else. Like, you've got the jagged peaks and everything like that. You can see a little facility in the background once we've gone through a little bit more of Cloud and Sephiroth walking through. And yeah, it just makes sense. But I don't know if this is the flashback. It's meant to make us think of the flashback 100%. And don't get me wrong, it could definitely be the flashback. We could be seeing Cloud's recollection. That's what we could be seeing. We also could be seeing a scene from later in the game where something's happened and Cloud and Sephiroth are walking through Mount Nibel together. You have to think back to a theory that was put forward by Baby Seal, which I still hate, by the way. But the theory was that towards the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, as it was then, Rebirth now, something would happen with Cloud, his mental break would come much earlier than it did in the original game, and we would see Cloud being corrupted by Sephiroth much earlier and turning on the party. This is something that Baby Seal was kind of talking about a few months ago, and if this does turn out to be not the flashback, because it looks like the flashback, it sounds like the flashback, it smells like the flashback, is it the flashback? Like, there's little things about it, like in the flashback, and we see flashback Cloud, or what would be flashback Cloud, in Remake, technically. We do see him when Zack's carrying him along. You know, we see like the type of clothing that he would have been wearing. And when you see Cloud and Sephiroth walking together in this scene, in the trailer, Cloud's wearing what he wears in Remake. Let me know what you think about that. I could be wrong on it. Like I say, my brain is literally melting still. I've still got to go through the Crisis Core remake, which, wow. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. I'm not saying it's definitely not the flashback, but I think there's a chance that that's a scene from later in the game. Everything's supposed to make us think calm flashback, and I would not be shocked if they've snuck something in there, and it's that. I've just got a gut feeling. Let me know what you think though. You know, I could be talking utter nonsense. Probably am. Let me know. Now, as this section's going on, Cloud is talking about how Sephiroth intends to finish his plan and rule over the planet with Jenova at his side, basically going over what he believes Sephiroth's intentions to be, and probably what is Sephiroth's intention to a basic degree. There's probably more to it than that, but that's probably the, you know, the basic part of Sephiroth's goal at this stage. There has to be more to it. It can't just be the exact same thing. So there's definitely going to be more to it. But yeah, as a basic outline of what he wants, yeah. Next we get more text on screen saying what is Sephiroth's endgame, so you know, continuing with this kind of conversation of what does Sephiroth want? What's the deal? What's he all about? We carry on walking through Mount Nibel with Cloud and Sephiroth, and like just the area itself is astonishing. We do see what looks like potentially the reactor structure in the background, and we see pipes and things like that. But throughout this section, Cloud is talking to Tifa about how injured she was and how he thought it was too late. And I believe that that's referring to after Sephiroth's kind of cut her down in the Nibel reactor. But we seem to get a bit of a weird response from Tifa. So it doesn't help that we don't really know the context that this conversation's happening under. But the response from Tifa kind of comes across as she is accusing Cloud of thinking that she died and that she is an imposter, or that that was an imposter, or something to that effect. That's what it reads like. That Tifa's kind of feeling questioned and doubted by Cloud. That's going to be something to watch for. That's definitely going to be something to watch for. We then see a flashback from the City of the Ancients at the end of Disc 1, you know what I mean, where Aerith is kind of kneeling down praying, and then we see holy materia, and we get another flash of text that says what is fact and what is fiction. And it's interesting that these kind of things are going together. So we're talking about the fate of the planet just after we've seen an image of meteor fall. We're talking about what is Sephiroth's endgame after we've seen Sephiroth and Cloud walking towards the Nibel reactor. And then we see a flash of that scene from the end of Disc 1, quickly followed by the words, what is fact and what is fiction. So they're definitely throwing some doubt on certain things, like they could be saying that the future events haven't happened yet, so, you know, they're not necessarily a fact. They could be fictional. They could be saying that the fate of the planet is meteors still going to hit. They could be saying about Sephiroth's endgame is for him to walk with Cloud. Maybe he needs Cloud for his plan. Like, that's been something that seems to have been a continuous theory. You've got the fact that Sephiroth's kind of made Cloud his core by the time we reach Advent Children, and kind of uses him to tether himself to existence. Maybe that's something that's continuing. Maybe in doing that, Sephiroth's realised that there's more power within Cloud that he can access. It's all speculation, but there's a lot of things that it could be. Then we go back to Cloud and Zack walking towards Midgar again. The white feather is still falling and still hovering around them. And we get a voiceover from Cloud saying, "You were with me 5 years ago. Where are you? What happened to you?" And we can assume that that's talking about Zack. We get confirmation of that a little later on, which I'll come back to. But again, this is another one of those things that I'm going to revisit in a little section at the end. Then we hear Aerith saying, "I'm trying hard to find you," in a line reminiscent of the gondola date from Final Fantasy VII. And then the final line that we hear as we kind of pan out from Zack and Cloud approaching Midgar is Cloud saying, "I'm sorry, I failed you." Now, this is all interesting. All of this stuff at the end seems to be conversation that's aimed at or regarding Zack. That's what it all seems like to me. It might not be, it might just be that the earlier part refers to Zack, but like I say, we'll jump into this again in a second. One interesting thing in this scene visually is what's going on with Midgar. Like, what stage of Midgar is this? It's quite difficult to tell. I've seen people speculating that that's where the Set 7 plate fell. I've seen people saying, no, that's where the Set 6 plate's still under construction and things like that. There's not really anything that we can do to ascertain either way. I don't believe, at least, not at the minute. If you've got any information, drop it in the comments below. I will definitely be interested in that. So, you know, share the knowledge if you've got it. Share the knowledge. And that's the end of the trailer then. We get the title, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is something that we called on this channel about 6 or 7 months ago in a few videos. It was quite an obvious title that was coming. And Remake Part 2 is pretty unwieldy as a title, so you knew they were going to streamline it, and if they did that, you knew it was going to be a re. I'm still moderately confident that the third game will be Reunion, but Crisis Core's kind of nabbed Reunion, so who knows. I've seen a few other really good shouts for what the title could be, but I genuinely feel like it's not going to be something we can really get a handle on until we've played Rebirth. In the same way that once you've played Remake, it was moderately obvious that Part 2 was going to be Rebirth. In my mind at least, it just felt right. And I feel like Rebirth will have something in it. There'll be a thread in Rebirth, the story, the narrative as it progresses. It'll inform us what the third game will be called as we're going through. And it could be Reunion. Who knows? And then we get the release window, which they're looking at winter 2023. That could be anything from like late October to mid-February, I believe, late February. So, it's a pretty chunky window, but it's coming hot on the heels of Final Fantasy 16. 16 will be coming out in the summer, and then in the winter we're getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's insane. It is insane. The next 18 months are going to be crazy between the Crisis Core remake, Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's just wild. Wild. Now, one thing I do want to discuss, it's something that I alluded to earlier in the video, I kept saying I'll come back to this, is the narration and some of the translation differences between the English and the Japanese. Now, this section is almost entirely informed by the Birds of Play, so please do go and show them some love. The link will be in the description. I'll try and pop it up on screen now. Subscribe to them, their link will be there. They do amazing work comparing the English and Japanese translations a lot of the time, and they find pretty substantial differences in a lot of cases. So definitely go and give them some love, and thank you very much for, letting me use your video as a point of reference. Now, I'm not going to cover all of the differences they've highlighted. Go watch their video for this. I'm just going to pick on a couple of them. Just make sure you go over there and check them out. Well, the first of these differences is one of the text boxes that flashes up, where it refers to what will become of the planet in the English translation. However, in the Japanese trailer, it says this planet, and the word it uses, as explained by the Birds of Play in their video, is normally used to refer to planets other than this one. There could be something in that. There could be something substantial to that. I mean, we could be looking at people becoming aware that there's maybe different threads of existence potentially. Maybe they become aware of certain things that have been fleshed out in like Dirge of Cerberus with like the cosmic life stream and things like that. Who knows? Now, there is a slight difference in the Tifa and Cloud conversation, but it's nothing substantial. The thing still goes the same path pretty much, with Tifa seeming to feel doubted by Cloud and feeling like Cloud feels like she may have been an imposter or is an imposter or something like that. But the main one for me is in the final section with Cloud and Zack when they're walking towards Midgar. Now, in the English, Cloud seems much more certain in what he's saying, whereas in the Japanese, it's as if he's just kind of coming to the realization, to some sort of epiphany. He directly says, "Zack, where are you?" after questioning, was Zack there with him? So we've got confirmation there that he is 100% talking about Zack. It was pretty obvious that he was, but it's good to have that confirmation there. And he's outright saying, "Zack, where are you?" rather than just a vague, "Where are you? What happened to you?" which is what it said previously. After that, it mostly stays the same, but this could be a substantial difference that gives away that Cloud seems to realise things about Zack far earlier than he ever did in the original game. But like I say, the problem with a lot of the audio in this trailer is that it's given to us without any kind of visual reference or context to what's actually going on, so it is tough to be certain and to ascertain what's going on around the time these conversations happen. There could be a scene just before it that changes the context entirely, or, it's tough to know at the minute. But it seems like we've got both Cloud and Aerith at the end of the trailer, both kind of talking towards Zack, but not knowing where he is. And that's it, that's all we've got so far in this trailer. We're definitely going to be getting more information soon. I'm definitely going to be digging through the trailer a little bit more. But the next thing that we need to really briefly look at is a few posts that went up on the Final Fantasy VII Remake Twitter page pretty much immediately after the event finished. Now, the posts from Nomura are probably the most interesting, where he talks about the Final Fantasy VII projects that are being developed in parallel with each other, and how he's heavily involved in each of them, but the final paragraph is extremely interesting, where he talks about Rebirth being designed so that people can enjoy this game whether they know the original game or not. In fact, new players might even enjoy starting their Final Fantasy VII journey with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Cloud and his friends embark on a new journey in this game, and I believe that the scenes that they witness after leaving Midgar will give players a fresh, new experience. Now, this is wild to me. This is pretty much confirmation that FF7 Rebirth is going off the rails. Like, this story is changing. Going into this now, expecting certain things to happen is possible, but it's unlikely. Like, we might still get the scenes at the Temple of the Ancients. They might play out exactly the same as they do, just at a different time. It's unlikely, though. It's very unlikely. This seems to me like they're coming out and saying, ready yourselves, this is going to be different. Saying that new players might enjoy starting their journey with Rebirth. Like, that is indicating to me that everything that we've seen beforehand in Remake doesn't matter too much. Like, it does overall in the overall picture, but you'll be able to play through Rebirth without knowing any of it, and that feels pretty weird to me. That does feel quite weird to me. He goes on to say that he can't wait to share the intention behind naming the first title Remake and the second title Rebirth. I hope in time to reveal what the third title will be called and where this journey will lead. Now, it's pretty obvious, Remake is Sephiroth remaking his destiny and the timeline being remade, that's what I think at least. Rebirth is because Sephiroth has been reborn with his power, because at the end of Remake he absorbs the future timeline and the Whispers, it seems like, so he's been reborn in a way. Zack has been reborn in a way. Everything has been reborn in a way because of the singularity. So that's where Rebirth comes from for me. It'll be interesting to see what they say and what their intentions were. And the only other thing here is that we get some confirmation that they've already begun working on the third title, which is great news. Hamaguchi says very much the same thing. And then finally, we've got Katase, who talks about the joys of developing the trilogy and things like that. So yeah, we've got a lot of information. There's a lot of... Considering it was quite a short trailer, there's a lot to kind of contemplate and think about. There's going to be a big focus on the Calm flashback, potentially, in this next game. As it should be, in fairness, because, you know, the flashback kind of sets up a lot of the plot going forwards for Final Fantasy VII in the original game. It would make sense for it to do the same thing at this point. But I do think we're going to see, if not Sephiroth kind of messing around with Cloud while the flashback's going on, I think I do genuinely feel that the shots early on in the trailer, where we see Cloud and Sephiroth, could be from later on in the game. I genuinely do feel like that. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about that, because that's a weird one. That's just a gut feeling. I'm not really basing that on too much that we can see on the screen. Let's put it that way. But what about you? Let me know what you think about the things that I've said about what goes down in the trailer. Let me know what you think about the trailer itself. What theories have you got about what could be going on? And do you think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to deviate massively from the original story? Or do you think it still is going to, you know, try and stick to the course? I doubt it personally, but what about you? That's going to be it from me. Keep an eye out for the Crisis Core remake video coming soon. Hit the like button, drop a subscribe on the channel, but more importantly than anything, have a great day.